Yeah, it creates it's from a physics standpoint, it's giving you more leverage by having a stiffer boot.
Yes, exactly.
And it's funny that you say the cowlingless skate. When I was in college, I had the reactor. Well, I had the reactor. I've worn Bauer my entire life
Okay.
actually. I've never really. I think I tried Reeboks like once, and I didn't. This was back in like 2013. I didn't really like them, and I got back in the Bauers, and I got in the 9100s and
Yeah.
reactors, and they hurt my feet. But then when they came out with the 9500s, I like a couple years later, I literally didn't switch skates for like years, and just recently this summer, I went because everybody's getting the cowlingless skates. I'm like, okay, like I'm either gonna end up a fossil or get with the times. So so I picked up a cowlingless pair. I didn't really like the 3 millimeter blade before because I mean I always preferred like a very like deep cut on my skate, and I found that with the 3 mil blade you couldn't really get that.
Okay.
But from a standpoint of moving forward, I was like, okay, it's time. I got to get used to this 3 mil blade. Like it's only a matter of time before nobody's even making the 4 mils, right?
Yeah,
Um,
it's interesting because and True seems to still be sticking to it, and I know I've spoken to Scott Van Horn about it, and they when they initially were going to come to market, they polled a bunch of pros and said, "What do you want, 3 or 4?" And they said 4. Now, again, I've
wow.
skated with both, um, and I think you're going to get more bite with the 3, but you're going to get a little more stability, with the 4, and to me, it's one of those things where if you wear them enough, you can kind of forget about it. So,
Yeah, yeah. That's why I went into it. I'm like, "Okay, I'm just gonna get used to it."
yeah,
Like,
exactly.
well, why do you think Bauer has dominated the skate market for so long now? I'm just curious.
Well, I mean, I think if you look at their history, it's something that they do very, very, very well. They know they've done it for a very, very long time, and they've been a huge dominant force. And it is this kind of institutional acumen, as I talked about kind of earlier. And they have a huge skate team, and they've really been able to kind of build upon this knowledge base, over time, and has success. And what they also get, and I will say, I was fortunate enough to go to Blainville, where their R&D offices are last year. And the
Nice.
thing that struck me over and over and over when I was there was how serious the testing team was in what they did, and the incredibly iterative approach they took to everything. So they have it was like 4 or 5 guys, and I think it's actually more than those 4 or 5 that I met, that go out literally every morning with new product for the first couple hours of the day, and they have a skate and they test stuff. It was massive room, and they're constantly collecting data to kind of inform their decisions, and
Mhm.
the validation testing that they go into, the depth of it, and again the life cycle from design to actually seeing it. The stuff that I was seeing that they were testing, which was probably still 18 months out, had probably been designed a year ago, maybe a little bit less. So
Yeah.
they take a long time, and they have this huge design pipeline. And you couple that with the fact that we have really robust testing processes. You have a budget and a focus on innovation. I think that's why you have seen them being so incredibly competitive.
Mhm. Yeah, just my whole life growing up, that's, everybody, even players too, it's just crazy how much, but you're seeing a lot of competition come in now, and almost like, it's almost like CCM is, and I don't wanna go as far as say copy, but they've really modeled their new models, I would say, after them. They've gone in a different direction than what they had before. Do you think because they just see that's where demand is, or they just see that's, like, what's working?
I think that, well, I know that they've over time. I think again everyone was really surprised by what I think people were very surprised at what True did, what
Yeah.
VH did, and once companies saw that and saw that opportunity and saw that this is a real difference, a really a different value proposition we can offer,
Yeah.
they scaled up very, very quickly. And I know internally, the design, the skate team and the goalie team really synced up to a much greater degree. But again, it takes a while for them to bring that to market. To CCM's credit, I know the as I was talking about earlier, the criticism that has been with CCM is, oh, you're not innovative enough. That's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
You can be absolutely at the front, and I would argue companies that are deemed the most innovative. You look at Bauer, you look at Warrior, who are, I think, are among the two most innovative. You're still
Mhm.
also having a population of people saying there's no, I would never would wear that. It's just there's a gentleman that I play with, is the other goalie on Monday nights. And his gear is extremely traditional. He's got the leather straps. When he drops, he falls onto the face of his pads, not the knee block.
Wow.
And that guy is never going to go to something that's super super innovative. He's going to want something
Right.
that's a little bit, you know, uh, you know, that doesn't appeal to him. So again, is it CCM copying other companies? No, I wouldn't say that. I think what they do is they seem to be very good at kind of sitting back, watching the trends, kind of almost
Right.
letting other companies, to a certain degree, beta test concepts out there and say, okay, what are they going to do? And okay, so there is a marketplace for a replaceable blade on a blade holder. Okay, let's come with our own version that's better, by their definition, not
Right.
mine. And then that's how they're going to attack it. But then again, with things again with the one piece boot, that's a big, 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 big step forward and step over some other skate companies.
For
So
sure.
they're not afraid, especially as we've seen with Axis. I mean, they're not afraid to say, okay, now I think this is the new era of CCM.
Yeah.
It's saying,
Yeah.
look, we want to be much more in the cutting edge and the innovation conversation than maybe they
Mhm.
haven't been previously.
Well, we talked a lot about pads and gloves, and you shared some of your favorites in the beginning. So
Mhm.
I just want to top this off a bit with
Mhm.
talk about helmets.
Oh yeah.
And just crazy, man, how many head injuries goaltenders are just getting now from pucks, collisions, and I mean, I know you know the Mrazek. Everybody knows the Mrazek story. Now that's a pretty hard one, but I'm just saying, I'm wondering who your favorite some of your favorite helmet picks are going into the next year.
So yeah, and I talked about how I think last year I was saying, the story of or last season was, the story's gonna be about skate, because I could see, you could see CCM entering the calling the skate, and you see Bauer, they came with the 2X at that time. It was a really good skate. And that was, I think, the conversation previously. I've said this year was going to be, the conversation was going to be around masks and helmet.
Yeah,
And it's something that companies are very, very, very cognizant of, and the fact that concussions are a huge issue. I think hip
huge.
health and concussions are the two major areas of concentration in terms of reducing injuries in those areas, for goalies as much as possible. So,
Mhm.
Bauer has the largest market share in terms of NHL masks. They're 960, the former iTech, and it's moved along 960 and things like that. They have something that works very, very well. They have the data that supports that it's a really good, really protective mask. They have their other line as well, with the enemy and stuff like this, the VTX and what have you. And they continue to. They're smart though, that they're not. I'm trying to find a better analogy here, but it's almost kind of like when you hear about like Rolex making an update to their watches. It's a very small iterative
Yeah,
change, cycle after cycle, because it works, and you don't want to mess with the secret sauce too much. Um, and that's kind of Bauer's approach, and it makes sense.
right.
With CCM this year, their new Axis mask, they really came out with something new. They've changed a lot. The interior is completely different. Mine's on my way, and I'm very excited to get it.
Very
And
cool.
the mold itself is different. And they really, it was a long time coming. And again, they use a lot of testing. And when I was there, they had, one of the really expensive crash test dummy heads, that they fired puck hands at, and it gave a huge amount of data readouts. So they were
Wow.
using that in terms of how do you shift around
Yeah.
the impacts and things like that. I think that that's really, really critically important. I'm really been impressed by that. I want to see. I'm wondering if that's going to catch, if that's going to be more of a status quo liner
Right.
in the pros going forward. Warrior came out with a mask this year. Warrior entered the mask space too, because I think again everyone is looking at that. Their F1 mask, I have one. It is awesome. Very impressive. It's nice. The nice thing that Warrior has done now, CCM's a little bit newer in the mask space. But like, with Warrior, they had a kind of blank slate and said, okay, and they also have a really, really robust presence with player helmets. They feel they can leverage some of that technology as well. So it is a very, very good light mask. The European pros that have been using them for some time have been raving to me about them. And I think it's going to be I'll have more on that kind of as I continue to test, and I'm going to do some features on it. But
Yeah.
it's a really, really good one. And there's honestly masks. Well, and it's all true for all of goalie. There is, after you kind of get through the big boys, there is a huge, wonderful kind of rich group of smaller, medium-sized companies that make really, really, really good masks that are out there. You have Otney and Sport
Yeah.
Mask recently partnered up, so they're making masks together. I have
Oh,
one of
no
them.
way. I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So I have one of their Mage style Timmy Thomas masks, the combo I love.
Yeah.
They are coming out with a new one, and I'm gonna forget the name. It's like the Pro X or something like that. That some pros have used that are people are really hot on. You've
Mhm.
seen Coveted has made some inroads at the pro level. A couple of guys are wearing them. Casacu. I always forget how to pronounce his
Casco.
name. Cascu. He's wearing a coveted combo two-piece now. Malcolm Subban is wearing one of theirs. So there's I always don't count those out. Now here we go with beginning the conversation with Warrior. There is challenges on the medium size, smaller size companies because they will not get the heck approvals and things like that. It's a
Mhm.
very expensive process. And technically with goalie masks, to get certified masks, you can't have them be custom. So Pro's Choice is one of the most common masks worn in the NHL. It is not a certified mask because when you go through the testing process, every mask has to be the same. If you change the
Mhm.
mask, then you theoretically could change the underlying safety protection capabilities.
Mhm.
So some of those smaller, medium-sized companies want to customize for their clients and also don't have the capital to go through that whole process. They don't want to mass produce masks. They really want to fit it to the individual client. That means they don't get the certification. Mom and dad see that, well, Johnny's mask isn't certified. It must not be good. So I'm not going to buy him that. So it's this constant education that needs to be done for these people in terms of kind of their awareness of certain mask brands. It's just like they are with some toy brands.
Yeah. Well, it's almost like the sticks have gotten significantly better, and like players barely, like, even in pro now, like the guys are using 75 flexes. They barely need to move into it, right? And we're sitting ducks in the net with these, I mean, I don't want to go as far as saying crappy, but there just hasn't been a lot of innovation. So I'm just curious, like, where and when do you think we'll see a significant improvement and sort of that we're adapting to the current environment with sticks, right? Like,
Yeah, I
what's
mean,
the issue with helmet
I
safety?
think it's a very, very fair point in terms of that's always been it's always been the rallying cry of goalies, right? And they keep saying, "Oh, well, just give them the players wood sticks again if you really want to, affect things." And you're right. It's this goalie masks have had to respond to the ever increasing velocity of shots. And now, again, when I was younger, two guys on my team could really rip it, and now it's like every single person can just because
Yeah,
they're
everyone.
leveraging that flex. And it does take a time while to catch up. I will say that again, back when I was at CCM a couple years ago, they were very, very, very serious 2 years ago about the amount of resources they were devoting to mass technology, and we're starting to see that now with the Axis. Because that was about 2 years ago, so it's about the right life cycle, and they were, kind of shared with the depth of testing they were doing. And again, you go into these huge labs that these
Yeah,
companies have that are specifically designed to assess these things. And again, they're using literal crash test dummies and using those data outputs to kind of assess how do we make this better. So I think we are at the beginning of starting to finally seeing those things to market. Perhaps this year. I don't want to. Again, there all this stuff is so new. It's hard to really evaluate it. You need to kind of let it have a little bit further down its life cycle and kind
yeah,
of see how this affects things. But I really feel like we're really at that point now because again, it's interesting because to your point, people had this, that same rubber text kind of like liners. The liners used to always be the same. It was kind of an afterthought in terms of the masks. That all now is just gone out the window. There is a whole kind of subspecialty around, well, how exactly are we setting up the liners and what materials are we using and things like that. And all the companies' liners are completely different. So again, I think that they're definitely doing everything they can, and I think we're now finally starting to see that catch up.
Do you think I'm just curious? So basically, that's what you're saying is like that's where the major leaps are being made is in that lining. Do you think at any point we maybe change the shape of it or anything like that?
I think it's both. I think they are changing the molding too. So I don't want to say that the molds themselves as well. They're making changes to those at the same time. But in terms of the shapes, yeah, I mean it's challenging because, and I did a piece on this about a year ago. They talked about the pros that were getting concussions, and there were two kind of narratives to it. It was, one, how many times these pros are getting concussions from shots from their own teammates in practice, which was a very high percentage, which was insane. And then number two, how often were the concussions related to a player crashing into them versus
Mm,
actually the puck impact? And that's, I think, probably from a design perspective, the greatest challenge these companies have. A football helmet, you have to worry about you can kind of identify all the different ways that a guy might get hit on his football helmet. With a goalie mask, it's okay. The puck impact on a guy's knee to your temple, who's going, he's going 40 miles per hour. Those are completely different from a physics perspective,
mm.
and how you can account for one versus another. So, could we see changes to the shape? Yeah, I think it's possible. I don't know exactly what the solution is. I don't think it's a quick and obvious one. Otherwise, it would have been done by smarter people than I.
The billion
Uh,
dollar question.
yeah, right. But I think that's from a how do we, if you say this, okay, we need to reduce goalie concussions. I think everyone can agree. Yeah, but even then, just trying to figure out the genesis of those concussions come a several different ways, and that makes it that much harder of a problem.